Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a fascinating and honestly completely hidden world that is very likely happening right all around us. Forget what you think you know about pest control. We're not just talking about chasing bugs with a spray can, we are talking about top-tier actual detective work. Today, we're going to unravel the true forensic science of urban pests, using the exact same deduction techniques you'd see at a major crime scene. So get ready, because the way you look at your own house, yeah, it's about to change forever.
Okay, let's dive into this. You've probably thought at some point, hey, my house is perfectly clean, there's absolutely nothing alive in here but me. But what if I told you that our homes could be highly active crime scenes without us ever seeing the actual culprits? I mean, why do you almost never see the pests that are actively destroying your home? It's a brilliant paradox, really. The most destructive intruders have evolved to be absolute masters of stealth.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how sophisticated the real diagnostic process is. Get this, 80%. In 80% of cases, an expert technician can identify the exact species invading a building without ever laying eyes on a live animal. No way, right? But it's true. They don't even need to see the culprit. They just need to read the environment and piece together the tiny, invisible clues left behind in the dark.
Section 1. The Invisible Enemy. Understanding cryptic behavior.
Section 2. Physical clues of the crime. Reading the crime scene.
So let's start with the most fundamental evidence out there, droppings. At first glance, it might just look like a bit of dirt, but the exact shape and size, that's the criminal's signature. If we apply what we call the coin test, meaning if the dropping fits perfectly on a tiny penny, measuring between 3 and 7 millimeters with pointed ends, we are definitely dealing with a mouse. But if it's much larger, say around 15 to 20 millimeters, and has this curious curved banana shape, well, our suspect is the black rat, an excellent climber that honestly is likely watching us right now from the false ceilings. And then we have the famous smears or rub marks. Now, rodents don't exactly have the best hygiene routines. Their fur is heavily coated with grease and dirt from the underground galleries they travel through all day. And because they suffer from neophobia, which is simply the fear of anything new, they literally run the exact same routes every single time, pressing their little bodies right up against the walls. By constantly rubbing against those baseboards and pipes, they leave these dark, greasy marks at very specific heights. To a trained eye, these smears act like a glowing neon sign just illuminating their daily commute to work. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the dreaded ootheca. We're looking at this elongated capsule that kind of looks like a tiny purse or a little case. When a pest control expert finds one of these, the entire investigation takes a drastic turn. We are no longer just looking for a lone bug that wandered in through an open window. No, we are dealing with a fully active breeding colony. This little capsule is a reproductive hotspot that can hold dozens of future nymphs, all just waiting to hatch. And speaking of growing nymphs, here we have the exuvia. You see, in order to grow, insects literally need to shed their exoskeleton. Imagine finding these empty, fragile, and almost totally transparent discarded skins subtly piled up near the silicone seals of your refrigerator. Finding these molts is the absolute irrefutable forensic proof that there's an insect population that isn't just living there, but is actively growing and thriving right in the shadows of your kitchen. Section 3. The modus operandi, analyzing property damage.
Take a look at the severity of this damage. This isn't just an aesthetic problem. The stakes here are surprisingly high. Let's start with rodents. Their incisor teeth literally never stop growing, so they have to gnaw constantly to file them down. When they decide to sharpen those teeth on the electrical wires hidden inside your walls, they can cause sudden, unexplained electrical fires. Next, think about the flour sitting in your pantry. If you ever open it and see flour with a strange pink hue, it's not a trick of the light. It is actually the work of the tribolium beetle, which uses these defense chemicals based on benzoquinones that end up dyeing your food. And finally, you know that wooden beam that looks perfectly intact on the outside, but sounds completely hollow when you tap it with a hammer? Yeah, that is the silent, devastating interior architecture of termites, hollowing the wood out entirely from the inside.
Section 4. The hidden senses. What we hear and smell before we see. Picture the scene for a second. The house is dead silent, you're in bed, and suddenly, you hear them. Faint scratching, little thumps, the subtle echo of sudden tiny dashes coming from just above the false ceiling right in your bedroom. It gives you the chills, right? Peak rodent activity is strongly concentrated in that critical early morning window, usually between 1 and 4 a.m. That subtle sound isn't just the wind, it's an acoustic map that tells the professional exactly where they need to place the trap. And the sense of smell is equally powerful here. A truly experienced technician can walk into a dark commercial kitchen and know exactly what's hiding in there before they even turn on their flashlight. A dense cockroach infestation emits an incredibly characteristic odor. It's acidic, it's damp, and it's deeply penetrating, which is a product of their aggregation pheromones. On the flip side, an active mouse nest, that will hit you instantly with an intense, musky smell of pure ammonia. The air itself is literally telling the story. Let's move to and see how this builds. Section 5, High-Tech Gadgets, the Modern Detective Arsenal. So we turn off the white lights and switch on the ultraviolet flashlight, specifically calibrated to 365 nanometers. What was once an immaculate, spotless floor suddenly transforms completely. Tiny drops of dried rodent urine react to that UV light and light up with this glowing, greenish-blue hue in the dark. It is wild. This light literally paints a fluorescent map of the secret highways these rodents have been using to secretly cross your warehouse or your living room floor. Of course, the modern arsenal's pretty varied. When we're comparing these detection techniques, say we suspect a rat is nesting inside a closed partition. Well, we can use a thermal camera to spot his body heat glowing right through the wall. Or we could carefully slide an endoscope through a tiny crack to spy on them without breaking any plaster. But you know what? Despite all of this incredibly expensive, high-tech gear, the undisputed king, the absolute most versatile tool of all, remains the simple, low-cost visual inspection guided by years of human experience. Section 6. The final verdict. Is it a closed case or an active threat?
It all really comes down to dating the evidence. If the droppings we find are a shiny black, have a somewhat soft texture, and emit a strong odor, beware. The culprit is still in the building, and frankly, they probably had dinner there last night. But if the evidence is an opaque gray, is bone dry, crumbles right when you touch it, and has absolutely no smell whatsoever, we might just be looking at historical artifacts from an old problem that's already been solved. We don't treat ghosts, right? We need proof of current, active life. And if there are ever any doubts about that current activity, experts use elegantly simple tricks, like the classic chalk test. This consists of just drawing a thin barrier of chalk or talcum powder right across the suspected trail, or right next to those suspicious droppings. Then we walk away and let 24 to 48 hours pass. If we come back to find that tiny footprints or new tracks have crossed the line, breaking our seal, boom, the case is closed. The infestation is completely active, and the enemy is still crossing that exact border every single night.
So the absolutely crucial point here is this. You can never look at your environment the exact same way again. We've learned how to read the smells, what to look for with rub marks, and how to distinguish dusty relics of the past from active, ongoing invasions. Armed with this brand new forensic knowledge, I want to leave you with a question that might just keep you up tonight. If you grabbed a flashlight right this second and thoroughly inspected under your own refrigerator, what invisible, hidden clues do you think you might find hiding in your kitchen right now? Thanks for joining this explainer, and stay curious.